Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Niche Pursuits News. And today we're going to talk about an 8-letter tweet that may have just changed search forever. Welcome to chat.com. Is it the Google killer? Well, we're going to talk about that. Sam Altman recently tweeted that they just acquired chat.com for OpenAI. And we're going to go into what that means, how that potentially is going to change search, but we got several other new news items that we're going to cover here as well. And then, of course, we have a couple of side hustle projects each of us are working on. I actually had a record month on my side hustle, and so we're going to talk about what that is. And then we're going to bring it home with a couple of weird niche sites. And one that's extremely timely now that the election has just completed here in the United States. Don't worry, we're not going to get too political here, but we do have a weird niche site that kind of fits into that realm. But first of all, Jared, welcome. How you doing?
Doing very well. It's good to have you back. It's good to be, we say this every time you're on. Pick a good week, like a lot of fun topics. We're talking OpenAI, we're talking Google, we're talking helpful content update, a lot of stuff to get into.
Yeah, there is just like so much news happening right now in the industry. It's ever changing. It's fast paced. So it's good to be on the show. I know I've got co-hosts that are helping out, but I'm back and excited to talk about what's happening. Now, as I teased here in the introduction, it looks like OpenAI has just acquired the domain name chat.com. Super short, super memorable. And if you go to that, it redirects to ChatGPT. And so it looks like there are early plans to make this potentially the public-facing domain of their brand, right? Make it a lot more memorable. It's short. People know exactly what it is. And the story behind this is a little bit interesting in terms of, hey, where did you get this domain? And so let me just share my screen as we like to do here. This is just this. Here's this 8-character tweet from Sam Altman, chat.com. That's it. That's all he said. Chat.com, 8.2 million views, right? That'd be nice if you could have an 8-character tweet and it went that sort of viral, if you will. But Dharmesh from HubSpot, the co-founder of HubSpot, he actually shared a little bit of the backstory here, that he was the one that acquired chat.com for roughly $15 million earlier in the year, is what he explains. So he's been the owner of that domain, but he knows Sam Altman, I think personally, they're a close business relationship at least. And he explained that, I don't know who reached out to who, but they came to a deal where Sam Altman acquired the domain from Dharmesh earlier this year or recently. They don't disclose the sum, but it's kind of just an interesting tweet to go through here. And he says, hey, if I were to prompt ChatGPT to ask how much maybe chat.com was sold for, here's some of the inputs that I might have, right? Just explaining here's how much he bought it for, and that he doesn't really need the money, but he never sells things at a loss, and that he might be interested in OpenAI shares, right? So kind of he's hinting at, hey, this is probably part cash, part, share. So he probably owns a little bit of OpenAI at this point, and probably sold for value of roughly, $15 to $16 million, maybe a little bit more. I don't know, but it doesn't sound like he made some sort of huge profit on it, right? Do you ever get stuck in your business and wish you had someone you could turn to for solutions? Well, I think you should consider joining the Niche Pursuits community. You'll get weekly calls with experts on growing a successful online business, and you'll also get assigned a small mastermind group where you can solve your business problems as well as share your wins. For a limited time, I'll let you try out the Niche Pursuits community for just $1. Go ahead and use coupon code PODCAST at checkout in order to get your first month for just $1. Again, that's coupon code PODCAST. Go to community.nichepursuits.com today and see what it's all about. And maybe I'll see you on our call next week. Thanks a lot.
First off, Dharmesh is funny. Like, what a funny way to, what a quirky way, what a funny way to kind of talk about it. It was endearing, I suppose is the best way to put it. I chuckled. I found it amusing.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, beyond the announcement, it's like we can start to kind of think about what does that mean for the OpenAI experience, right? They've always said that they are more than just ChatGPT. They want to bring AI to the forefront of the entire world's ecosystem. We have OpenAI's ChatGPT, and then now we have SearchGPT. I can tell you, I've already stumbled multiple times in talking about the search function, right? It's Search GPT, it's not ChatGPT. Like, does this now chat.com just become the hub for all things OpenAI and their search and their ChatGPT? I mean, it's interesting to think about what they're going to do as a consolidation. I'll leave you with this last thing. Like, it almost feels like a move like Google did when Google.com became launched. It was a very simple search experience, right? And they kind of decluttered what Yahoo and AOL and a lot of the others were doing. I don't know, almost in an ode to their biggest competitor. It feels like they're almost decluttering or simplifying the experience of where they're going. It's interesting.
Yeah, it is really interesting because OpenAI has actually been around for several years, before they launched ChatGPT, right? And so to look at the evolution, I don't think OpenAI really knew where their long-term vision was. They just knew that they wanted to develop AI tools, harness the power of AI. They believe AI is the future, going back 5-6 years, right? And then they launched ChatGPT. And it was like this really kind of nerdy, large language model thing. You had to go to, I don't even think it was chatgpt.com. It was openai.com/whatever, right? So it was kind of just this cool like tool, like, hey, world, go check this thing out. And it took off, in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
But now it feels like they're thinking about, instead of just appealing to the very techie side of the world, this is like a consumer product. We need to think about branding. How are we going to present this to, grandma and grandpa, the average users, to teenagers, to everybody? A simple, memorable domain goes a long way. And so it feels like that's what they're thinking about is branding and business building and bringing in all customers. So you can just go, hey, if I want to learn something, just go to chat.com. It's going to be that easy. And all of a sudden you're using AI, and it's not just AI, right? It is now something that feels very much head to head with Google.
Mm-hmm.
It's a search engine. It can access real-time information, and that's a little bit what this article goes into that I'm sharing on the screen here. That basically is just an announcement that OpenAI search engine is now live, and part of that is that it accesses real-time information. Previously, Search GPT was limited to, I don't remember, some date in 2023, right? But now it's really like a search engine. It accesses the internet live and can act as a search engine. So is this the Google killer? That's kind of the big question. It feels like going that direction where they're going head to head with the big gorilla of Google. They've got a search engine. They're becoming more consumer friendly with their domain. It's brandable and memorable. And now all that's left is kind of for the users to decide, where do you go to search? What do you think, Jared?
Well, no doubt, as a user, currently the Search GPT UI UX is ad free.
Yes.
We don't think it's going to stay that way, right? So I'm not. The jury's out on that, but I think that from an experience level, they just keep making improvements, notable improvements, marked leaps, things moving forward that are really, really big. And we could debate it, but Google is either barely making very real improvements or sliding backwards. We'll talk about AI overviews today, and we have been talking about it. Some would argue that's an improvement, but this is a good experience. And we covered last week or the week before how Search GPT is sending a much more traffic to publishers than anybody else. I do think that their use of citations and links is pretty prominent. Again, all things being equal, right? We're having to live in this new AI world. But I mean, yeah, obviously all of that is one thing. Google's got such a head start with over 90% market share. Whatever they're going to do is going to take time. But Yeah, I mean, we covered Spencer on a podcast a couple months ago, like, too big to fail. And I don't think Google can rest on their laurels any longer with this type of technology improvements that are coming around everywhere. This being, front and center right now.
Yeah, it's sort of the story as old as time, at least as long as businesses has been around, is that companies grow larger and larger and gain more and more market share and become very powerful. And it can be difficult for them to shift strategies and change with either new technology, or they don't always see the smaller players coming, right? And that appears to maybe be the case here, is that OpenAI was one of these competitors that has come from out of left field and taken them a little bit by surprise. And so the fact that we're talking about it as, sort of in the same breath as Google, like, that is certainly signs that there's some chinks in the armor of Google here. There's a lot that could be said here about OpenAI launching Search GPT, in terms of, are web creators going to be happy with this experience? In this article, it talks about how they've struck a deal with some large publishers, and they name a few. If I can find that, Condé Nast, Hearst, Axel Springer, News Corp, probably some others that they've developed media partnerships with. Because previously there had been other AI search services that are facing lawsuits, including, News Corp, New York Times, and others have sued Perplexity for using sort of free writing off of the information that they published, right? And so this is going to be an ongoing sort of legal battle between, how do publishers make money when AI is just giving the answers? And right now I am happy to say, and I'm looking over at, chat.com, chat GPT here on my other screen, that they do provide a lot of links.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's enough to keep publishers happy. That's sort of the model that Google has always implemented up until recently, which we can, of course, talk more about. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
It's a good experience. To your point, like, it's a different experience. It's not your traditional Googling. We're at the forefront. Those who listen to this podcast are at the forefront of these sort of technological advancements. Sometimes it's hard to work ourselves out of the little bubble we're in and realize that the rest of the world is not on the cutting edge of AI like a lot of us are. So, but it's a different experience. And I find that the more people that kind of start using like a Search GPT or a Chat GPT, like, a lot of them like it. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be fascinating to have a front row seat for this. But if you haven't used Search GPT, I believe it's only available to paid members right now. And it is a button inside of ChatGPT that you can toggle on and off as that globe icon, and then you can switch over to the Search GPT functionality.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to kind of see what happens. And it almost feels like Google is playing a little bit of catch up along the way, but they've certainly been making big moves with AI overviews over the last, gosh, how long has it been? About a year. It feels like maybe not even quite that long since AI overviews started rolling out in some areas, particularly in the US. It's been tested out a lot. I see it all the time. But it was recently announced that AI overviews are being rolled out more globally. In fact, here's just an article with Search Engine Land that Google has expanded AI overviews to over 100 countries. And it says that AI overviews will bring over 1 billion users and should work in any currently supported language. So this is big news. So Google is not rolling back AI overviews. There was some hiccups along the way that we talked about very publicly here on the podcast, some hallucinations and other things with bad AI overview answers. I don't know that all those issues are fixed, but clearly the leadership at Google feels strongly enough about the product that they are rolling it out to over 100 countries. That's going to be, it looks like, the default. And wherever you are, they're going to try and provide an AI overview.
Well, we covered a story last week, I believe it was, about how 43% of the financial results with AI overviews were wrong. So, what better way to fix it than to just roll this out to over 100 countries as is?
Just rip the Band-Aid off and let everybody have it. I know.
You can't beat them, join them. This is a big deal, right? Like this is kind of AI overviews fully flushed out. We remember going all the way back to SGE. Do you remember we were debating how they only were doing this beta in certain countries that was set to expire? We were theorizing, are they going to release it to other countries? They never did, to my knowledge. Then they pulled the beta expiration date down. And so a lot of people have not been able to experience this around the world, right? They didn't get SGE because it was a limited release to limited countries, and then AI overviews came out, and that's been very limited as well. So I think the wheels are off now, like the training wheels are off. We're going to kind of see what this looks like without those training wheels that really haven't been helping very much anyways. Well, now they're off. There's so many problems. They shipped this product with so many problems to the whole world, and they took off the training wheels, and now we're just going to see if the wheels fall off the bus or what's going to happen.
Yeah. It does make you wonder, why they make some of these decisions, because clearly there have been issues.
Yeah.
You just pointed out all these factually incorrect things or bad financial advice even that are still happening. But it almost makes you wonder if they're like, hey, we've got a fast-moving company, OpenAI, on our tail. We got to move just as quick. We got to prove that we are the forefront. We've got AI. We're rolling it out quick. We're a leader. We're not a follower. You have to think that some of those conversations are happening over at Google. And so maybe that's why they are doing this so quickly, it feels like.
I mean, it matches up perfectly with the stuff that Jake shared in his interview this week on the podcast. Went live on Wednesday. He was at Google's Web Creator Summit. And, he talked about how one of the attendees brought up, hey, today, like literally as we're all sitting here, your CEO went on an earnings call and talk nothing but AI, yet you, as the head of search here, are telling me that it's not about AI, it's about publishers and independent voices. It feels like just like this, like Google from the top wants to push AI. They want to push to their investors that they are all in on AI because this is the buzzword, this is the future, this is everything that we're putting ourselves behind. Meanwhile, everyone over in AI, over in search, everyone's going like, this thing ain't working. It's not working yet. It feels to follow suit with a lot of what we've seen out of Google in the past couple of years, where leadership says one thing and then the tech teams, the development teams, the teams on the ground are struggling with actually making it work.
Yeah. No, it's a fascinating dynamic because it goes way beyond just technology at this point. Does Google have the tech to do AI? Sure. But should they, right? And what does it mean to independent publishers and people that are actually writing content? Are they still going to be able to get the same amount of traffic, make the same amount of money, et cetera? All these other bigger questions that, like you said, at the Web Creator Summit, part of that was meeting with these individuals to see how the search algorithm has impacted their websites and their livelihood, and to talk through those issues. And then there's a whole other department, if you will, at Google, right, that is making other decisions that maybe the engineers in the room, unfortunately, talking to the web creators, they don't have control over.
I don't know Google if you noticed, Spencer, and the craziest twist of irony ever, that Google, I believe, if I have my dates correct, Google launched AI Overview to the world at the same moment they were meeting with these 20 publishers that have gotten destroyed.
Incredibly ironic, isn't it?
Very.
It's a little bit crazy. Yeah. Not real comforting.
No. We'll leave that one there,
to the people that are in the room.
It just hit me this morning as I was reading this article, getting ready for the podcast, that I think the date is spot on the exact same.
Wow. And so, how do AI overviews impact the traffic to web publishers? We have a little bit of insight into that, but I think over the coming weeks and months, we're going to understand that a lot better. But we do have one article here by Marie Haynes. She's got her newsletter here, where basically she says, and is there a date on this? Anyways, published this week, that traffic is down as AI overviews launch globally. And so that's kind of the lead story that she leads with here in her newsletter, starting, I think she said October 28th.
Yep, that's when AI overviews launched.
Days. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so just in the last week or so, some people have noticed some declines that potentially they're saying is probably because of the AI overviews, right? They're looking at different countries and they can see when AI overviews were launched, and they're saying, hey, it looks like when, for example, this screenshot it doesn't get any bigger, but from India, it looks like after October 28th, search referral traffic went down. And probably that's because of AI overviews being rolled out to other countries. So that's an exercise, I guess, that everybody could go through. They could look at their Google Search Console, break it out by country, and see if you actually notice a dip around those dates. And that would be interesting to see. I'd be curious to hear from any listeners if they've noticed specifically that AI overviews have impacted their search traffic in that way.
And if you look back to your point, like you said, hey, make sure you kind of isolate by countries, right? The rollout to the US market, for example, where a lot of us get a lot of our traffic, and even a lot of publishers worldwide get a lot of their traffic, but the rollout to the US market was so slow in comparison. This is over 100 countries going live in one day. So we didn't kind of get this dramatic look into how it could affect traffic like we do here. And so it's interesting to see from a data standpoint too. I don't want to over theorize, but you can almost start to make some connections to the actual impacts behind AI overviews due to the dramatic nature of this hitting the SERPs all in one day in some countries, rather than for us in the US, for example. It was a very gradual rollout in comparison.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then, there's some other interesting stories here that Marie Haynes covers. People can go to mariehaynes.com and check that out if they'd like to. But we'll end on the final sort of news story, if you will. Here is that Glenn Gabe has been tracking something like 400 websites hit by the helpful content update since 2023. So it's been a year and a couple of months at this point, and he's been tracking whether or not any of these sites have seen an increase in traffic or what the different Google updates, how they impact these individual sites. And for about a year, right, it's been like, well, no changes, no improvements. But in the August core update, we finally did start to see some sites that had their traffic hit so hard from the helpful content update start to see some recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, in his report, he says 22% of sites hit by Google's helpful content update are up 20% or more. And to clarify, they are up 20% or more since August,
Right.
the August core update. So that does not mean that they're 20% higher than they used to be before the helpful content update. Unfortunately, that would be great. But there is some, partial recovery. And here's some screenshots. This kind of gives people an idea of like, okay, this site's way down. And then it's a little blip here up, with the August core update. Any movement up is good, and then you look at some of these others that see a bigger recovery, right? I mean, this site hasn't seen a full recovery, but a very significant recovery, right? From where it was in September. If you kind of come back here, still not quite there, but it's getting close. And then this one does not show what the September 2023 traffic was, but you can see it went from getting, about 20,000 visitors a month to now it looks like about 80,000 organic searches a month. So a huge impact from the August core update. And same with this last one here. This actually, its traffic is significantly higher than it was in September 2023.
Wow.
So this
that's
pretty incredible, right?
Well,
because
get
in
them on
September
the podcast.
2023, yeah,
What'd they do?
the site was like, it's hard to see, but maybe 800,000 organic visitors a month in September. And now it's at like 2.4 million. So it's actually like triple the traffic now compared to before the helpful content update. So that is rare. So apparently there are some sites that have seen a full recovery. But with the August core update, 22% of the sites that he tracked have seen an improvement. So that's sort of the good news, that it's nice to have some silver lining to everything we're talking about.
And if I could butt in, Spencer.
Yes.
I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but we actually have an upcoming interview on the podcast with someone who's made more than a full recovery from the HCU. And we are diving into an hour of exactly what they did to get that full recovery.
That is awesome.
So
I
they do
had
exist.
heard, I heard some whispers that was going to happen. But that
you run the
is
email actually, but
may have gotten the ball rolling, but I know the more stories that we can get. So, hey, if we just shared your screenshot, this one down here, and it's your website, let us know. We'd love to talk with you. Or if anybody else out there has seen a full recovery from the Helpful Content Update, those are the stories that we want and need to hear. That would be really excellent news.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, to your point, like good and bad, like good, we're seeing recovery. It does match up, though. I mean, anecdotally, I feel like, Spencer, with us covering the August core update every week. It was only coming out for a couple weeks. It took a couple weeks to roll out, and then we had kind of the post-mortem on it, the roll-up on it. So we kind of covered it for about a month there. I would say that this feels exactly like what we were seeing, like maybe 1 in 4, 1 in 5 sites was seeing some recovery. And as I have continuously said, it's typically around the 15 to 20% mark. So it looks like I was undershooting it a bit. I think maybe those sites maybe continue to gain a little bit following the end of the core update, which is not abnormal as the Ahrefs of the world continue to catch up with those improvements. So that seems to pass the sniff test. It seems that data is pretty much accurate with some of the things we've been seeing out in the wild.
Yeah, and maybe just my final comment on this, as it relates to Jake Kane's interview on the podcast. It was the Web Creator Summit, and so I've been thinking about that a lot, about the bloggers and the small publishers that met directly with the Google engineers. It does feel like, from what Jake said and other people that were there, that these engineers and the people at Google generally really are trying to figure out why good sites got caught up in this algorithm. They're trying to understand it better. The algorithm is incredibly complex, as we know, with AI, machine learning, all these other elements that are at play, that it's really out of the control of any one engineer or even team of engineers. They can't just tweak something because, well, honestly, they didn't create the whole thing. The machine learning and the algorithm created a lot of it. And so it likely will take a very long time to get some of these things adjusted. I think August was an early attempt, but it could be multiple updates in the future. It could be many months in the future. And even then, there's no guarantee that your site is going to be one of those that is considered a good site, because it's just this very complex thing. But that is one sliver of hope, that it does appear that pretty much everybody that went to that Web Creator Summit did feel like the engineers there were trying to understand what was going on. They did feel like there was a problem with some sites that got caught up in this update, and they do want to try and fix that. It's just a very, very big problem.
Spencer, I pulled it up for right now. Normally, I don't check comments. Podcast hosts are notorious for not really checking comments. You can imagine why. But I wanted to see how the episode with Jake went this week. It was a very, very good interview. If you haven't listened to it, definitely recommend it. It's doing very well in terms of the number of listens it's got. But look at the comments. We've got a comment from Danny at Housefresh. He chimed in on it. We even got, I don't know if you saw this, we even got a comment from somebody who used to work in Google search.
I did see that, actually.
So anyways, a lot of people chiming in and talking about kind of some of the stuff that happened at that Web Creator Summit. We got the inside track on it, but as it relates to the Creator Summit and the interview, like, certainly it's best to take the long view with this. You don't want to be the one holding your breath and waiting for Google to fix this. I don't think many people are, but if they do fix it, it would really be great, because we've all focused on diversification and other traffic streams. And then to have some of that come back would just be a cherry on top. And I think that that's the right perspective to look at. And this is, from that vein, good news. From that angle, good news.
Yep. 100% agree. So yeah, I'd encourage people to check out that last podcast. If you're listening to this one, it's just the podcast previous, last week or this week that was released. So check that one out very much. So
Hey everyone, Spencer here, founder of Niche Pursuits. Are you adding a new internal link pointing to each article you publish? You should be. Ever find it time-consuming and a bit overwhelming? Remembering what content you publish and deciding which anchor text to use can be a real headache. What if there was a better way? Well, that's exactly why I created Link Whisper. Simply click Add Inbound Internal Links, and Link Whisper will scan your site in seconds and suggest the most relevant links with appropriate anchor text for your new article. Now simply check the box next to the internal links you want to add, and Link Whisper will add these links for you. No need to go into each article, edit, and add the link. It's already done. No more manual internal link building or guesswork. Just efficient, accurate linking that saves you time and improves your SEO. Transform your content strategy with Link Whisper. Start linking smarter, not harder. Use the coupon code podcast for $15 off. Head over to linkwhisper.com and use coupon code podcast to get $15 off.
Very good. Let's talk about our side hustles. We've got a couple of shiny object shenanigans, things that maybe aren't our main focus in our life here, but they're fun nonetheless. They get us, it's what we think about late at night, and, help us dream a little bit of what could be, what's some little side hustle we could start. And you know what? I will go. I teased that my side hustle project earned more money last month than it has ever before. And that is the case. It's the same project that I've been talking about. It feels like the last couple of times, at least, that, I've been on the show here, is my Facebook page. So I have a Facebook page that is approved to the Facebook Performance Bonus Program. And I didn't check, but, the page has over 80,000 followers at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It's a year and a half old. I don't know, something like that. I can't remember exactly. I started it a summer, probably, not this summer, but the summer before. And, initially kind of the goal of the page was to send traffic to my website. There is a website, and it was doing okay. It was making a few bucks here and there. But then it got approved just a few months ago to the Performance Bonus Program. And so I guess without, adding any more suspense, my Facebook page made $3,796 in the previous 30 days.
God, it does keep going up.
It's almost $4,000 just from the Performance Bonus Program. And so here's just a screenshot, of that. And the dates of the Performance Bonus Program, they don't line up, at the exact end of the month. You can see it ended November 3rd, 2024. So that was just a couple of days ago. It's whenever you were approved. So if you're approved on the 7th of the month, your 30-day period will always be the 7th day of the month. I don't know why that's the way they do it. So I can tell you that I earned about $3,800 from October 4th to November 3rd, essentially, right? And that's all from the Performance Bonus Program. So that is just keeping people on Facebook. They're just engaged with our page. The more comments, the more views, the more likes, the more money this page earns. I don't have to send them to my website. I'm not selling them any products. I'm not doing any sponsorships, nothing. It's just you keep them on Mark Zuckerberg's platform, and Mark sends me a check every month. That's pretty much the way it works. And so what's really interesting is potentially interesting is I want to try and take this to the next level even further. And I have somebody helping me run this entire Facebook page. I don't put a lot of work into it other than strategy. And, a couple times a month, I come up with a new idea and I shoot a video and say, hey, we should try something like this. But for the most part, I've got somebody else running the whole thing, and she loves it. She's really into this niche, and she's just having a great time, and she gets paid for it. But she brought up the idea. She's like, hey, I've seen some other pages that have their email address here, and they're saying, if you want to sponsor your product on our page, contact us. And I said, sure, if you want to try out, allowing people to, pay to have a sponsored spot on our Facebook page, ship their products or whatever it is. Let's try it. And so we haven't done that yet. That's literally this week, but we're turning that on. We're going to try and reach out to a few people and see if we can get some sponsored spots on the Facebook page. You figure some months this page has had as many as 10 million impressions. That somebody's got to be willing to pay a couple $100 to have a post right on our Facebook page. So we're going to try that out, and I'll report back next time or let everybody know when we make our first few dollars from actual sponsored posts. So that's the next revenue stream.
I want to ask you quickly about the bonus revenue, the 3,796. So I know they don't tell you RPMs, or any number really like that. But like if you had to look at the increases it's had of late, is it directly, and this is a question I've had for other people in the bonus programs, that's why I'm asking you, is it more related to an increase in traffic, an increase in engagement, an increase in impressions, these sorts of things? Or is there some sort of, seasonality or a higher payout per visitor, maybe during Q4 or during the election or during like certain times of year, like we see with advertisers, right? Q4 pays better for the same amount of traffic than say Q1, although niche dependent. And so I'm just curious, like, is there any of that happening, or is it pretty much you're getting paid whatever it is per 1,000 people, no matter, what time of year, what time of season?
That's a really good question. I'm not prepared with that data, but I do have a gut feel. And so we'll just go on gut feel on this from what I've sort of sensed and remembered, because I have looked at the data, but again, didn't compare it specifically. But the previous month, previous to this, I earned, I want to say it was $3,400. I think it was $3,400. And so about $400 more this month. And I do feel like this month, the traffic or the impressions was a little lower. The engagement I felt like was a little bit lower.
Okay.
So I do feel like the quote unquote RPMs were higher this month.
Yeah.
Right?
And that would trend with Q4, trend with the election, trend with so many other data points we know about, when people pay more to have their eyeballs, I guess.
Yeah.
I was going to say pay to put their brand there, but that's not what Facebook's doing in this case. They're just paying to keep people on the platform.
That's right. And I do get the sense that is going to be the case. But now that you've said that, I'm gonna gather some real data on that, because I do feel like the first few days, right, since November 3rd, I'm looking at my earnings now. It feels like the earnings per impression maybe is a little bit higher when I think about that. Again, gut feel for now. So I'll get back with some hard data on that.
Would love to see it. Congratulations. I mean,
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to the podcast interview that we did with Jake earlier this week, like he talked about the Facebook bonus program, and he actually presented that to Google. He said, they asked for solutions to the HCU. They're like, what would you, man, that's a whole different story altogether, but stay on point. The engineer said, what would you do to fix this? I.e., apparently we have no freaking clue what to do. So, but Jake was like, what about something like the bonus program? You want to keep people on Google. You make all your money when people are Googling things. What about encouraging creators to create content that keeps people on Google? That's a win-win for everyone. He used this model because it's just, you feel it sounds like so rewarded as a publisher for not sending traffic to your website. You're perfectly okay with it. It is basically what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much, exactly. It's a really interesting solution. Again, it's a side hustle, right? I am very well of the platform risk that Facebook presents.
Yeah.
They can decide to no longer do this program. They can cut my payouts dramatically, and I'm like, well, okay, I can't, so I'm at Facebook's mercy, but it's a really fun side hustle while it lasts. Right, kind of make hay while the sun shines, sort of deal here.
Amen.
We'll make some money while I can.
Good, very good.
Yeah.
Well, you and I, you're sharing a number in the 3,000s. I'm about to share a number in the 3,000s as well.
Ooh, all right, trying to one-up me.
I have felt like the side hustles I've been sharing of late have not had quite the lift off of some of my other previous side hustles. So we'll go back to an old standby for me. The Amazon Influencer Program, we're recording here in the first couple of days of the month. So that means we have October's numbers, and it's just, going back to Q4 is on the mind, right? Like it's Q4,
Yeah.
we're gearing up for those, for that really good time to be on Amazon Influencer Program. So I thought I'd give an update there. October earned roughly $3,350.
Congrats.
And so, yeah, still in the kind of $3,000 to $4,000 range, which is where I've been hanging out all year. You could argue, why isn't it going up? I would say, well, probably because I'm doing the bare minimum in terms of number of videos I'm uploading. I haven't bought one product this year with Amazon Influencer in mind, just reviewing the stuff in my house. That did change this week, though. I was on a business trip earlier in the week, got back a day or two ago. And for this one, didn't stay in a hotel, stayed in an Airbnb. And so you know what that means, right?
That's right. Lots of videos.
Yep. So I ended up, not lots. It was a busy trip. I got 8 recorded though. But when you only have time, when you only have like an hour, you can really sharpshoot what you're gonna video. So there was like a $700 pool table that is actually sold on Amazon. It's kind of like a mini pool table, I guess, not a full size one. So I reviewed that. There was a bunch of really nice products. I also zeroed in a couple products that I know last year in November. I also was in an Airbnb and I also filmed products. And one of those kitchen products went on to be my best seller for that kind of holiday season. I ended up making over $1,000, I think over $1,500 off that one single product. Anyway, so yeah. And I have been seeing an uptick in the purchases, the commissions, the earnings. October last year in 2023 was a little slow. And you and I were talking about how it was not exciting. We were questioning what Q4 would look like, right? Because October technically is Q4, but November and December more than made up for that, as it turns out. And October this year was the same thing, like kind of slow, not great. This year, though, I had a little bit of a more positive attitude about it being better come November. And sure enough, I mean, we're here recording on the 7th of November. The last 3 days have been $112 in earnings, $141 in earnings, and $224 in earnings.
Whoa, that's a big day.
So starting to get towards Black Friday. I think Black Friday is 3 weeks from the day this podcast is released. And
I think you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're inching closer this year to that. And I joined the Niche Pursuits community last Friday on a call for the community members. And we spent a lot of time just kind of talking with each other about like, stay motivated, get those videos out, even though you're not seeing it maybe right now. Like you got a couple more weeks left to crank some videos out and get them, and hopefully get them in carousels for that crazy period, which is where a lot of those earnings come through. So, yeah, October was okay. I mean, I guess $3,350 is okay now. I'll take that okay if that's okay. But really excited for some of the early numbers for the upcoming sales season.
Yeah, that's really good. I'll be interested to hear what you do, of course, over the Christmas season. I'm trying to remember. I think it was in the 4,000 range that you did last December, if 4, I remember.
4,000-ish, like 4,200 November, 4,200 December, basically. But all the sales tend to happen at the end of November and the beginning of December, right? Because everyone really starts buying once Black Friday kicks in, Cyber Monday, and then we noticed last year the buying stopped when that banner started going across. Can't guarantee this product will be here by Christmas.
That's right.
Remember? So, anyways, my point by saying that is there was a 30-day stretch where my 30-day average, my last 30 days was like 6,500 to put in perspective what's happening. But it splits between 2 months basically. So you get 2 really good months, but a 30-day period, a 30-day run is like really high.
Yeah, I'll have to share my numbers as well when we record in December or something, or towards the end of the year, to kind of compare, just to see how we compared to last Christmas. Both of us have put in a lot less work on the Amazon Influencer Program than we did previously. I even less than you. Without hardly any new videos at all since the beginning of the year. So we'll share all those numbers. So stick around. If you're listening to the podcast, we won't leave you hanging. We'll be sure to share those numbers right here on the podcast.
Perfect. Very
good. Well, this brings us to our last segment of the show, our weird niche sites. And so I have a weird niche site that was referred to me by a reader. And this kind of is just a very short, interesting story because a reader reached out, somebody that listens to the podcast, and he said, "Hey, I've got a couple of weird niche sites. Are you willing to share these?" And then I saw the email address he was emailing from, and it was a domain name that I thought I had heard of. And so I looked it up. I was like, wait a second, this email domain that you're emailing from gets like, it looks like millions of visitors a month. It's like, why don't you come talk to us on the actual podcast, be a guest, and tell your story? And he said yes. And that show was published with Tegan Goddard of politicalwire.com just about a week ago. And so people can go listen to that interview that Jared did with Tegan, Political Wire. How much traffic was Tegan saying politicalwire.com gets at its peak? It was like
8 million.
Yeah,
I
like
think it was
8
8
to
million,
10
right?
million or
8
something.
to 10 million. He was anticipating during this month of
That's
the
what it
election
was.
cycle and stuff. And I will say that after doing the interview, I became a fan. I was on Political Wire for the election period, using that as my my news source. I was watching
your go-to news source.
That was my go-to
Yeah.
news source after talking with Tegan for an hour.
It just blew my mind that he is publishing 25 to 30 articles a day.
I mean, to be fair, they're not long, but
they're not
all
long.
him.
It's amazing. So to come full circle, I am finally going to share his original weird niche site suggestion. And so we can thank him for this, weird niche site that I'm going to share here. And as you might suspect, I thought, it's election season here in the U.S. A new president was just elected. And this website is electoralvotemap.com. It's very, very simple. It's basically, you can come in here and you can see, how the votes all laid out, and you can click on different, states to see, well, what would have happened if Colorado went red, or what would have happened if, Utah went blue, right? And people all day long, I assume, were coming to this website throughout the election season, and we're checking the current map, what was projected to happen on the map, and they're saying, oh, Georgia's a swing state. What would happen, if that went here? And you can see the change. That would have changed it to 279 to 242, whatever it was, right? That's pretty much the site. There's a few other things on here. Okay, you can look at historical results. Yeah. You can look at some explainers, right? So there is like information related to the Electoral College and maps and historical election results, right? But for the most part, people are just coming here. They're clicking the map. They're seeing what the current results are, right? So because I had the inside scoop, Jared, I went ahead and I went ahead and emailed Tegan, and I said, hey, are you willing to share like how much money this website's making? And he said, sure. And so I can tell you that last year it made something, or last election season, I think is how he phrased it. Yeah. Last presidential campaign in 2020, it made about $30,000.
No.
And this year, it's set to do a little bit more than that. $30,000. Yes. So now, of course, in all the other years, he didn't say, but I suspect it doesn't make nearly as much, right? But he's going to make $30,000 off of this website, probably mostly all in October, November, right? Like leading up to the actual presidential election is where the bulk of that money is going to be made. And he did share that it only cost him $3,000 to build this website, some freelance developers, some freelance writers, and that's it. And he essentially has not touched it since. And that's it.
It's really fascinating because you feel like, well, I was going to say this until you showed the drop-down menus. He does have historical results, which could rank in SERPs and get traffic. He does have explainers, which are articles. So those could get traffic. Until you drop that down, I was like, does this site just basically get traffic one day every 4 years? Sorry. And then like, that's that. I mean, it's monetized. It looks like Mediavine here. So it's got to get enough traffic to qualify for Mediavine. I mean, I know he has his other site on Mediavine and stuff, so maybe he was able to get this in, even though the traffic swings with seasonality and stuff. But I mean, to your point, like if you're listening, it's a really well done site. Like it looks really nice. It's just a very clean, well done site.
Yeah, and he has some referral traffic probably coming over. People subscribe to his newsletter over at Political Wire, right? And so he is, mentioning his main website, probably get some traffic there. And I'm sure he refers traffic from Political Wire to electoralvotemap.com as well. But this is just, it's like kind of a side hustle for him, just a weird niche site, if you will, that brings in up to $30,000 or more during election season. So kind of cool. Again, these little tools, this one's a map, but just these little simple utility of websites that you can just come and use for one thing or for a season or whatever. Like that's got to spark some ideas for other people out there, whatever it may be.
And to your point, I would be so curious I don't even know if we could figure this out, but I'd be so curious because we know Political Wire is in some ways working with this site, but that also gives people hopefully ideas. Like if you have a website or a brand that is driving a lot, like how can you maybe create a little spinoff or a sub of it, because you can use that big brand to help that little site along. So instead of maybe your next project being something totally unrelated, maybe you follow a model like this. Like what's a little sub of my brand that I can use to create a whole different traffic source, a whole different set of income, a whole different monetization, but it's so closely tied to my main site that I can use that to really kind of substantiate it.
Yeah, it's still sort of on brand, in your umbrella of what your company does. And you can use it, maybe make a little extra money.
It's really great. I love it. And that was also, we've had a couple really good interviews. That was such a good interview.
Such a good interview.
So curious to just hear, like, man, talk about someone who did it the exact opposite way from the masses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good stuff. Worth listening to for sure.
Well, my weird niche is a tried and true category that we love to feature here. It is a calculator website. I mean, months don't go by on this podcast where we don't feature some sort of calculator, conversion, some sort of tool. These tool sites just continue to show up. And so the website is charactercalculator.com. So I thought when I first saw this, that somehow it's going to be a calculator about your character as a person and an individual. And so I have to admit, I was really intrigued. Like, ooh, someone figured out a way to like calculate. Like maybe do we get scores? Like, can we enter in how many good deeds we've done this week? And we get a score of how good our character is? So,
well, there's your next idea, of course.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe I should make that. That should be my weird niche sometime, is to make some sort of calculator tool. And it got me going. It's suffice to say, it's not that. It's a character counter, right? As in characters of words, paragraphs, etc. Now, I'll admit that I'm looking at this, and it's a very valuable tool. And the reason for me is I always end up having to go to like Google Docs or Word, and then you have to like highlight the section, and you have to go up and drop down and hit word count to kind of get that information. And why does it matter? Yeah. Well, because so many different things have limits. And so if you scroll down the homepage there, Spencer, you'll see that they actually talk about this. I found this a little bit amusing. If you keep going down, it tells you at some point, there we go, maximum characters allowed, like X or Twitter, that's kind of a famous one, right? You get 280 characters for normal users. YouTube title, obviously for SEO, we have some stuff. Ironically, I don't put that in there. And then of course, Spencer, top of the list right there. Why would you not need to know that Facebook statuses are limited to 63,206 characters, in case you were wondering?
I have not hit that limit yet.
Neither have I. They have not told me I can't put any more text there. But, it's very simple. Like we talked about, most of these calculator sites are, they just basically give you basic character count, word count, those kind of things. It is monetized. Does have ads. Fairly prominent. Sidebar, both sides. Video ads, both sides. Footer ad. How much are they making? Don't really know, but we can go over to Ahrefs and we can kind of take a look. I think there's some interesting things here. So if we go over to Ahrefs and we take a look, you can see that the site is, I'd say, pretty good. It's a DR52, getting 658,000 estimated organic traffic.
Whoa.
For this. Look at that.
Wow, look at that chart too. It's just done really well over the last year.
Okay, I'm glad you pointed that out, Spencer. You walked right into my trap. So, well done.
Uh-oh.
Well, I only say it because I fell victim to the same thing. So go over to top pages there, because you're right. The organic traffic chart looks really, really good. And so if you go over to top pages on Ahrefs, you can see the same. It's on orange on the screen there. That's the organic traffic. And look, it's grown really well, hasn't it? I mean, survived every update. As a matter of fact, it's this summer. It really spiked, right?
Yes.
Okay, now go up to that all locations tab up there by the top pages and drop down and look at only US traffic. Right? Nope, left. There you go, right there.
Yeah.
Drop that down and isolate it just to the US. And
show results.
You'll see a very different story.
Whoa. What happened in the US?
So this, all of a sudden, this beautiful looking graph turns into this spiky mess through 2023. And honestly, very much down in 2024, although flat since that March core update.
Yeah, interesting. Wow. So where's all the what country's getting all the traffic?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The reason I even saw this is because if you go back to the global view with all locations and you scroll down on the top pages, you'll see that a lot of the top pages are from different countries. You know, they have different countries in front of them. And so that's what prompted me to kind of start looking around there and say like, oh, where is this site getting all of its traffic? And, you know, that does dictate how much ad revenue you get and all this kind of stuff. It's very interesting, though, to see that it's interesting to see that they're getting so much organic traffic because they've put this in so many different countries. Yeah. That's why they're getting so much traffic. And so again, just in terms of weird niches, you look at that 658,000 organic traffic number, you're like, that's huge. How are they doing that? Well, they're doing it because they're really ranking in almost every country in the world.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, so if I click on, I don't even know what language this is. I just clicked on the top one, right? It's clearly in whatever language this is.
I was going to say, you're about to say it's clearly in the language. I'm like, wow, Spencer, well done. I don't know what language that is.
Yeah, if I were to guess, something Middle East somewhere.
That would be my guess. Yeah,
but who knows? So I'm gonna probably get in trouble, so I'll just stop there.
Yeah,
but they clearly have translated it, you know, into. Well, there you go. You've got a drop down menu. Oh, it looks like Turkey. So I was close.
Okay.
I was on the right track there.
There you go.
But yeah, you can do Espanol. We'll just go back to English.
This is the font one, isn't it? Font changer.
Yes. I mean,
it's worth noting that this is the classic case of, we built one that's called charactercalculator.com. And we had so much success. What if we just added more to this strong domain? And so the font changer has nothing to do with characters, but it's on charactercalculator.com.
Yeah. And well, it's clearly getting some traffic as well.
Actually, that's pretty cool. Look at that, Spencer. You can just it's like a logo right there. And just hit copy, and it'll give you that new font. I like that one right there. Hello, Niche Pursuits. Look at that. All the craziness. Yeah. Wow.
This is good stuff. Hours of fun.
Well, I have to give a little shout out. We get tipped off on a lot of these, and Spencer and I are both so disorganized. We never know who told us by the time we actually get to the podcast. But I've been getting so many from one person, and so many good ones, folks. A lot of your favorites, the Checkbox site, for example, it came from the same person. So I got to give her a shout out and say thank you to Suzanne Jackson, who keeps me pretty well stocked. And no, Spencer, don't start going after her and asking her to share with you now.
Suzanne
I revealed
Jackson.
One of my sources.
Right, see if I can find her.
That's what I mean. That source is, I'm very appreciative of it. So, but anyways, thank you, Suzanne. Another great site. She keeps finding these really good weird niche sites, and she'll send, I don't know if all of them or some of them over to me, but anyways, I wanted to give her a thank you.
No, that's good. And that makes sense. That is a welcome. You know, you're welcome to do that. It is a very hard job, especially when you're on it every week like you, Jared. I just swoop in here now about once a month and have a weird niche site, but every single week it becomes a task to come up with these weird niche sites. There's a lot of good ones. I mean, here we are, like how many year and a half in, whatever it is,
more.
We're doing these weird niche sites.
We're approaching 2 years now.
Approaching 2 years. Every single week we got to come up with one of these things, and they're still out there. And so I know there's listeners out there that have created some of these. So feel free to share your weird niche site if you want a little bit of airtime right here on the podcast. So,
well, Spencer, I only missed one news podcast last year. And I was wondering if I'd make it through all of 2024 without missing one. And I think I've gotten this far, but I do have one I'm missing coming up soon. So you'll get a chance to swoop in and,
Yep. I'll fill in.
Yeah.
And, if you happen to have a weird niche site that week, Jared, just, flip it my way.
Send it your way. Yeah, you're doing double duty this month. Filling in for me while I'm on vacation.
That'll be good. So thank you, everybody, so much for listening to today's episode. And be sure to hit that subscribe button and keep following us along for more. Thanks a lot.
See you guys next week.
Hey there, thanks so much for listening to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Did you know that Jared and I are members of a private group called the Niche Pursuits Community? And today I want to share with you how you can join for just $1. The Niche Pursuits Community is a private members area for niche online publishers to mastermind and grow their businesses together. We hold weekly calls live with experts where you can ask questions. These experts share tips on Amazon Influencer, Google Discover, building email newsletters, getting traffic from Facebook, and other strategies to grow your online business. You'll also be assigned a mastermind group of 4 or 5 other people in a similar stage in business as you. Dive deep into your business issues and get your problems solved. If you use coupon code PODCAST at checkout, you'll get your first month for just $1. Go ahead and give it a try. Come join me, Jared, and lots of other digital entrepreneurs inside my private group at community.nichepursuits.com. And be sure to use coupon code PODCAST. I'll see you on the inside.